Hello and welcome to the history of Stargate Atlantis. Today's episode, Janus, the Lantean Ancient. And here we go. Janus was a Lantean Ancient who lived on Atlantis in the Pegasus Galaxy 10,000 years ago. He was among the few surviving Lanteans who returned to Earth after the war with the Wraith. He was among one of the few surviving Lanteans who returned to Earth after the war with the Wraith, which he was responsible for creating. Janus was one of the most well-known and brilliant Lantean scientists, and his inventions were never orthodox advancements. He took great pride in creating out-of-the-ordinary technological marvels, most of which were either banned or frowned upon by the Lantean Council. He installed a time machine in one of the many puddle jumpers in Atlantis, and hid many of his controversial inventions and research in his secret laboratory. He also designed a personal cloaking device and made use of the long-range communication devices and long-range communication stones. He was also one of the ancients responsible for creating the Wraith and for bringing the giant squid to the frozen planet. When Major John Shepard and Dr. Zat'nikatel were killed when a Wraith dart destroyed the time jumper and crashed into the Lantean Ocean, Janus was able to save Dr. Elizabeth Weir and became her advocate when she met the Lantean Council, while he argued and defended Weir on her behalf that she should be allowed to return to her own timeline and prevent the Atlantis expedition from falling into the same tragedy again. High Counselors Moros and Malia refused, and Moros angrily condemned his experiments, ordering the time ship destroyed and the city to be evacuated. Refusing to allow the future Atlantis expedition to walk into the same disaster herself had faced, Weir pleaded to Janus to help her find a solution that would save the expedition from walking into the same disaster she faced with herself. Janus agreed, and after doing some calculations concluded that manually rotating the zero-point modules sequentially every 3.3 thousand years would allow slightly more power to be available when the city was visited by the Atlantis expedition, and Weir decided to stay behind in the city to perform the task. Janus programmed a stasis pod to reawaken Weir every 3,000 years or so, to allow her to manually turn the ZPMs. He also programmed a fail-safe mechanism into the city, should the power drop to such a critical level that the shield would fail, so that the clamps keeping the city at the bottom of the sea would release, and the city would rise to the surface. Lastly, he blocked all gate addresses except for Earth, so that no one except someone from Earth could dial Atlantis. As Weir decided to stay behind, Janus himself decided to escape with the rest of the Lanteans with the crystals of his work, which are still not found on Earth, with the hope that his efforts to save Atlantis for the future Atlantis expedition would succeed, and was the last Lantean to leave Atlantis. Sometime after arriving on Earth, he rebuilt his time ship, which would later be used to destroy a Goa'uld mothership and eventually retrieve a zero-point module from Ra, which was later used to shield and save Atlantis from a Wraith attack. 2008, while researching through Janus's lab, McKay found the plans for a personal cloaking device. However, he tells Dr. Jennifer Keller that he doesn't think Janus ever got around to actually making it. Despite this, after months of work in Janus's secret lab, the expedition recovers tons of ancient technology that they still haven't finished cataloging months later. 2009, appearing in Taylor's dreams, an ascended Dr. Elizabeth Weir indicated she had encountered Janus and that he had ascended himself. She also indicated that Janus told her about the truth of the Wraith's origin, and that he had possibly told Dr. Daniel Jackson as well, but Jackson wouldn't have remembered it. 2010, while doing research on the squid-like beings on the frozen planet, the Atlantis expedition's biologists realized that they had actually been brought to the planet by Janus. It was theorized that Janus, who was one of the scientists responsible for the creation of the Wraith, had been trying to slow human aging, and may have been using the squids to test whatever mechanism he intended to use. After establishing communications with the Old Hunter, one of the squids, he confirmed that Janus did in fact bring his people to the planet, with the Old Hunter being one of the squids originally brought by Janus. Janus brought the squids in one of the ancient vessels and taught the creatures to communicate so that he could learn about them, their lives, and how their bodies work. Janus experimented on the squids to learn how ascension could be reached, which some of the squids managed. The squids, changed by Janus's experiments, and their descendants gained extended lifespans and didn't die of old age, but they failed to gain many of the other abilities Janus had hoped for, and Janus abandoned his experiments upon the squids and changed to experimenting upon the humans instead, leading to the creation of the Wraith. Janus claimed that transporting the creatures back to their homeworld would be difficult, and promised to return for them in time. But he never came back. The squid seek out the expedition's help to fulfill Janus's promise, and are able to provide the Stargate address of their homeworld. Thank you for watching the history of Stargate Atlantis.